I definitely have time blindness, especially when I'm on the computer. So if I'm on the computer, I am not aware of how much time has passed.
I don't think there's any game that I've ever personally played that is more intense in that line than Rocket League. It's like you have to be on every single, like one little half second mess up and you're gone.
So anxiety is really, really interesting because it can present differently in like just about anybody.
Absolutely.
Like how somebody deals with anxiety and the learned behavior that your brain decided to take when that first started presenting or anything of that nature. It's very difficult to diagnose also because a lot of people say like, oh, I have anxiety disorders, but they're not entirely sure on how we can work on that or what medication I should be taking.
I will jump from point to point to point to point. The fact that I'm still doing a podcast after 3 years is insane, but I've stuck to it. Yeah. But I'm the type of guy that I'll pick up knitting until I can prove to myself I can, and then I'm like, all right,
and
the next thing.
That black and white thinking is something that a lot of people with autism struggle with.
If you tell me to do something, and it was something I was already planning on doing, now I'm not doing it.
Do you believe in what do they
100%.
say? Vehicles not of human origin.
Warning: may contain mental health, chronic illness, streaming, gaming, and/or peanuts.
iamWoodstock.
Welcome to the show. Is this the first time you've been on a podcast, either of y'all?
It's my second.
Second time. Nice. We got a vet.
It's kind of my second. My buddy Feeds is also a streamer, and he did, I think, Feeds Mindset a little while back. We're not recording right now, right? Like,
We are live.
Oh.
We're not live, but we're recording.
Oh, okay. I just felt bad because I don't want to like promote somebody else's channel.
I don't think he would mind, but if he doesn't want to be associated with this, I get it.
No. It's not like that.
It's for your sake. It's for your sake.
No. Promo all the way. I got nothing.
In the streamer world, that's like a huge do not do that.
Explain that to me.
So basically, like, if you go into somebody's chat and you say like, yeah, I was just streaming whatever, it signifies to the other viewers in the channel that are actively watching this stream that they also stream.
Okay.
And so it can pull from their community and they'll find their streamer, which is a little weird to me. I never really understood that. That's why, like, when somebody comes in like that, I just kind of like warn them like, hey man, I don't care. But like a lot of other people do. Like they do not like that.
Well, I mean, you're actively streaming guys and it's pulling them away.
Right.
Me as a podcast, if you're listening to this, you're already listening to it. You're not going to be like, I'm going to stop listening and go over to that one right away, which I guess can happen in the streaming world.
Yeah.
Okay. I've never actually been in that field. I've always dreamed that I was good enough at video games to do that. So having someone on, I'm stoked to talk about it.
To be honest with you, it's not really even like about being good at things. Cause like, to be honest, like most of my chat like is completely unaware of the game I'm playing. They don't care.
Right. There's a lot of people in his community that don't even play the games that he plays. They're just there for the community and to hang out with him and to just have a space where they can be themselves.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Yeah. Like and that's the mental health aspect of it, is just like reinforcing and encouraging people to have boundaries. And if somebody doesn't respect your boundaries, then they don't need to be around. So
what is your handle?
Leif Eats Lemons.
Leif Eats Lemons?
Yeah.
Was it Leif?
Yes.
All right. Leif Eats Lemons. How'd you come up with that?
Oh, man.
So you got to tell the story.
Okay. So when I was home on leave, because I'm a Navy veteran,
okay.
I was home on leave and I had just walked into the door and my buddy Leo, I brought like a bunch of like chicken and like lemon and a bunch of stuff. I was going to make lemon pepper chicken for my mom and my dad. And so I had all the stuff. I started cooking it like as soon as I got in the door. And my buddy Leo, who is somebody that I've known since middle school, was on the football team with me. And he just like walks into the house. He's pretty much my brother at that point, because like just how frequently he was there. And then when he came in, I was holding the lemon and I looked at it and I looked at him and I just chucked it at him. I didn't have a reason. I didn't know why. I just wanted to. and it hit him in the face. And he's like, why would you do that? And I was like, I don't know. And he's like, well, you got to eat it now. And I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, you just got to eat the lemon. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. And he's like, I didn't want to have a lemon thrown in my face. So here we are.
It's fair.
And then, so I go to start peeling it. And he's like, nah, you just got to bite it.
Apple,
So-
just full on.
Yeah. I just took a bite and it was awful, but
It stuck.
yeah.
You rolled with it. So that just happened to be a time where you were setting up a gamer tag and you're like, I guess Leif eats lemons. Yeah.
That's pretty much what it was. Like there were other names that I had used, but I don't know. It just didn't, like, for branding purposes. It's like nothing's really original anymore. So I just figure I might as well just use my name.
And it's a conversation starter, right? I mean, Leif eats lemons. First of all, you have a crazy name. I don't know. How many
Yeah.
Leifs do you know? And then Leif eats lemons. What does that mean? And it opens the door to get people talking, get people
Right.
engaged in chat, and get people,
Yeah.
hanging out.
That's true.
And so you talk a lot about just making a safe space. Was that the initial intent, or is that just kind of what it turned into?
So I never really got into the streaming world until really late, actually. After the COVID cruise, this is what we called it. I was on the COVID deployment with the Nimitz strike group.
Okay.
And so we were at sea for an extended period of time. We had like 3 port visits.
Nimitz, why does that ring a bell?
Because it was all over the news. They
Oh,
were the
that was
ones that
the-
were they couldn't port anywhere because COVID and everything was shut down. So they were at sea for a lot longer than they needed to be.
Yeah.
Is there the Nimitz, like, isn't there something about like a UFO as well?
Oh, yeah.
I think that's where I heard it. There was like a TikTok or one of those go fat. I don't know.
Yeah.
USS Nimitz had some people deployed on a training thing, saw some crazy shit.
Yeah. No, it was so I think they were just off the coast of San Diego because at the time I think the Nimitz was stationed in San Diego. Like that was their home port.
Mm-hmm.
And so they go off and do exercises just to like recertify and like make sure everybody's training is up to snuff and all that kind of stuff and like all their qualifications. And some of that stuff you can only do at sea. And so they launched this jet. And I think they were doing night launches because it's a completely separate qualification to land on the carrier at night and
Mhm.
launch on the carrier at night.
Oh, here we go. Rachel to the win. Yeah, I guess there's some video of some guys. Oh, it is the Tic Tac. Okay. So anyone who's ever listened to any Joe Rogan podcast, he's probably talked about it on every single one of his episodes. But yeah, it's one of those. Do you believe in what do they say?
100%.
Vehicles not of human origin.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
No, I do. 100%.
Oh yeah.
There's no way that, yeah, no.
It's not just us.
Unless we're in like some sort of simulation, it just happens to be some weird programming glitch.
Yeah, but even if we were in a simulation, it's still not just us.
Well, what
Who's
if we were the
controlling the
ones
simulation?
creating it and we put ourselves in it?
Right.
It's still
Which is
human
also,
origin.
yeah.
That's fair. We are the aliens.
So you were out on the Nimitz. You were telling a story about how you got all into it. I totally threw you off track talking about UFOs because I'm like, that's what it was, the Nimitz.
Yeah.
So you're on the COVID cruise, huh?
Yeah, I was on the COVID cruise. We got our iron shell back. We could have gotten our iron shell back, but we couldn't get authorization to go to the equator again.
Iron shell.
Oh yeah, shell back. So I can't tell you the process. I can't tell you like what you do because it's like I guess like brotherhood, I guess.
Okay.
I'm not sure how else to describe it, but it's like, I'm going to say, I don't know. I don't want to say like light hazing, but at the same time, it's like, it's kind of,
I get it.
yeah, it's like that, but it's nobody gets hurt. It's not uncomfortable. You don't have to participate if you don't want to. It's one of those things, but yeah. So we were out there and eventually I think it was like 205 days at sea. Like we hadn't pulled in anywhere. We were just out there and we kept getting extended. I think we got extended 6 times on short notice. So it was just
Because
awful.
they didn't want to bring people back to shore with everything that's going on. With
So
COVID.
they made it seem like they were just not able to get another ship out there. And the commander of one of the fleets that we were in, I'm not even really sure how much I can like talk about it because like I don't know what's unclass and what's not, but more or less what it comes down to is just like, they said that they couldn't get another ship out there because there was a bunch that were in dry dock, and like other ships had like maintenance planned. And so they would have to skip their maintenance phase and all this kind of stuff. And so they had like a ton of excuses, and Fifth Fleet always wants a carrier out there. So like, I don't know why they wouldn't let us go, because they had a amphib that was in the area, and it could have just as easily moved up because it was off the coast of Africa, I think at the time. And they just never did it. So we wanted to get our iron shell back. We eventually we just didn't, I guess. We got our normal shell back, but we didn't get our iron shell back. And iron shell back, I think, is like 200 days at sea. And then you do the ceremony and all that, which is like, I think there's only one other ship that has it. So
shellback's kind of like I'm still hazy on what it is. It's like a
kind of an elite club.
Okay, yeah.
How could we equate it? Like something just few people have done, and so it's just makes it special.
Have you ever heard of the Blue Nose?
Mm-mm.
Oh man. Okay.
Have you ever heard of the Mile High Club? I'm just kidding.
There we go. So
but kind of the same concept, right?
It's the same,
I mean, it is.
Yeah.
It is.
Okay, I
it's
get
the same
it now.
concept.
Yeah.
Like if you've done this
There we
thing,
go.
then you can be a part of this group.
The Iron Shellbacks are sailors from USS Dwight D. Eisenhower, USS Villa Gulf, blah, 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 who crossed the equator during a 2020 deployment. The sailors were the first to earn the title of an Iron Shellback after spending more than 100 days at sea. Okay.
Oh, it's 100. Okay.
The line crossing ceremony is a tradition in the Navy that symbolizes the transition from polywog to shellback. So it's like you're a man now.
Yeah. It's like it's not an official rank or anything like that, but it's just kind of a morale thing. It's like
I mean it is, but
you have like a patch and everything.
They give you a certificate. It's a scroll.
That's cool.
It's
like an actual
cool.
scroll.
Yeah.
You can like unfurl old school time. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
It's pretty sweet.
Awesome. Well, that's really cool. So you got into streaming because you had literally nothing else to do for hundreds of days?
So no, I'd always wanted to kind of like go in there, but I never really had a plan, and I never really had an understanding of the space. So I started watching when I got back from that deployment, and I was just kind of like frankly, I didn't enjoy what I was seeing. A lot of the streamers that I happened to click into and those types of things, it was just, it kind of seemed like a very toxic, like negative
like
space.
A boys club.
I would say so. Yeah.
Just a lot of immaturity or.
Yeah. Like there's a lot of that. There's a lot of drama that doesn't need to happen. There's a lot of people that like, you know what subtweeting is?
I don't.
So it's just like a suggestion that like
vague booking.
Yeah.
It's still nope.
Okay. You make a post about somebody without calling them out by name, and you just kind of hope that they see it.
Yeah.
And it's vague enough that it can apply to any situation.
So passive aggressive.
Kind of yeah.
Okay. Subtweeting is a Twitter-specific form of communication where a user criticizes or mocks another user without directly mentioning them or including a link. So they're calling someone out passive aggressively, just being a little little biatch. There we go.
Yeah,
kind of stir the pot a little bit.
That's exactly what it is. And it's so weird, and it's over the dumbest stuff. And so like I kept seeing it, and I was like, that's not like, do I really want to be in this space? And then I don't know. Eventually I just had a conversation with myself and decided that like, okay, if that's what they're going to do, then I'm just going to do it this way. And so I just don't.
You took out all the negativity and just focused on the positive stuff.
Yeah.
Carve your own path.
And to be honest with you, I'm glad that I did that, because I found out that there's a ton of streamers that do that. There's a ton of them. They all exist. It's just they're not getting the notoriety or the clicks, I guess, because drama's messy. People like knowing what's going on. They look at it. They get more engagement and those sorts of things. It's almost like
it's like a form of rage bait.
Yeah, it's rage bait. That's all it is.
It's human nature. We love watching car crashes.
Right.
Yeah, can't look away.
Someone gets helped across the street. It's beautiful, but everyone's turned over looking at the mangled boggies.
Right.
Unfortunate, but true.
Yeah.
It's the whole sex sells situation.
We were just talking about that actually.
Yeah.
In the car on the way.
Yeah.
Was it called like a thirst bait? Is that what Chad does?
Thirst trap.
Oh,
Thirst trap.
yeah.
There we go. Yeah, we got a good buddies. slaps meat on TikTok, and he's this big old buff dude, and he's like, yeah, thirst trap. I've never heard the term in my life.
That's fun.
It sounds like you're doing something that you actually really enjoy. You just get to sit there and not only play games that you like, but sounds like part of your focus is to like help other people like feel comfortable with the space that y'all are in.
Yeah. The main focus, to be real, is just given a coffee shop vibe. Like just come as you are, talk about your day, but like the only thing I ask when it comes to that stuff, because a lot of streamers just don't want you to trauma dump. Like that's like the main thing. It's in almost every one of the streamers' rules. For me, it's not so much like that. The only thing that I ask is that if you do trauma dump, allow me to make your day better. Allow me to.
You got to sit with me for a minute. Yeah.
So give me an example. When you say trauma dump, you've got to, because I've never done the streaming thing. I'm assuming it's Twitch. Is that what you go through? Yeah,
Twitch and Kick. I do both.
You'll like stream up a video, and then there'll be people commenting on the side, or is it all text, or is it audio too, with multiple people talking?
So you can have text to speech, but that's about the extent of it, unless you invite them into the Discord call, and then their voice can be heard on the stream or something of that nature. But it's mostly through text. And so let's say Johnny comes in and he just had the worst day. Like he got a flat tire. He ended up hitting a chicken, and it was his favorite chicken.
Oh,
and
Johnny's chicken.
Right. And so he comes in and he, just like throws that all down into a text and throws it into the chat. And now somebody else, so like, let's say Deborah just recently lost her chicken. She might be triggered and she might be upset, and that might ruin her experience. So a lot of streamers try to avoid that by just not allowing that type of thing and that type of conversation. But I don't think that that's reasonable.
Yeah, you got to confront it.
Yeah, I want Deborah to be a strong individual that can get past her chicken trauma.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And that's kind of the whole thing is like, I just want to create a space that like we are allowed to feel what we feel. But the only thing is that you have to allow yourself to feel better and not just stew in it.
I get it. Yeah. I like it. What kind of games do you play? Like what's your current setup?
Oh man. So I've actually been bouncing around. It changes
so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But a lot of World of Warcraft.
Like the new stuff that comes out, or is it all okay? So MMO, is that what it MMO or
RPG?
RPG, there you go. MMORPG.
Massive multiplayer online role-playing game.
Yeah.
That is a mouthful.
Yeah.
And so WoW, they just came out with a new expansion recently, or no?
Yeah, they did. And then they also released like a plan for what like the future of WoW is going to be. They released Classic, which is just WoW Classic. It's 1 to 60.
WoW Classic again?
Yeah, again.
What's the difference between WoW Vanilla and WoW Classic?
Well, you can't just say 1 to 60 without explaining what 1 to 60 means.
Oh, level 60. So it's level 1 to 60. Sorry.
So when you get to level 60, WoW, you can max out everything in the Classic.
Yeah. And Classic and Vanilla, it's the same thing. It's the same vein. It's just Vanilla. Usually when people are talking about Vanilla, they mean when it came out, and that's when it was relevant. And then Classic is just, okay, we're going back to that and we're playing that same game.
Okay. So it's the leveling up side instead of the end game, raids and PvP, all of that.
And that's what's so interesting about WoW, honestly, is that like, if you level from 1 to 60, you've only completed in like, this is just a completely random number, but like for me personally, I would say that you've completed maybe like 10 to 15% of the content. Like there's just so much to do at the end game.
So how do you, and guys who are listening, pay attention to this. How do you get your significant other to be okay with you playing video games all the time?
That is a really good question.
I got to note this down real quick. Treya, are you listening?
Well, I mean, I think that it's a twofold. I think it's a twofold thing is, I work full time. I work out of the home full time. And so he's home whenever the kids are in school. And so he's got that time to dedicate to streaming and to playing games. And I mean, that is his job, you know? And so then in the evening time, everybody needs to decompress. And even if you're doing it for work, that's for work.
Yeah.
That's not your fun time. That's not your relaxed time. You're on camera, you're fielding people's comments, you're talking to people, and that can take a lot out of you.
Mm-hmm.
So we have our, family time in the evening, and then I do my thing and he does his thing after the kids go to bed, and we meet back up and watch Stranger Things. So it's really all it is about balance. And
only
just
Stranger
having,
Things though, nothing else.
Yeah. And having respect for your partner and their interests, their hobbies, and their profession. So
I would honestly say that, like, for me and how I decided to go about tackling it was just communication. Just communicating like, hey, this is what I intend to do. Like, for example, on Thursdays, like there's raids and stuff that you can do in World of Warcraft. And on Thursdays, every Thursday at I think 7 p.m. server time or whatever it might be, I'm not sure exactly, but I always do a raid on Thursdays.
And that's a commitment. You're committing to
Yeah.
other people who are
Yeah.
setting time aside to do this at this specific time. So it's not something that you can just cancel on, 'cause
Right.
they need you. You're part of the team.
And before I gave them confirmation, because I told them that I would do it potentially, but I would still need to talk it out. So if I have that spot, just let me know. And so they did. And then I didn't confirm it until I talked to her about it and told her like, hey, on Thursday nights, I'd like to raid. Is there any issue with that? And she said, no, like, it's just, it's really forming routines, I think is the best way.
And
It's
really,
just-
that respect goes both ways. Like, I respect his hobbies, I respect his interests, I respect his profession, but he also respects me. And there are absolutely times where he's been playing for a while and we agreed that he could play for a while. And we're an hour into this and I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of feeling a little lonely. Don't have anybody to talk to. You're a little busy. Can we like wrap it up maybe? And he will say yes if he can or no if he can't. But we have that conversation and I'm like, hey, this is a need that I have right now. Can we meet it now? Can we meet it later? Can we hang out and what do we do? And he has enough respect for me to be able to put the game down whenever we needs to put the game down.
Yeah. And it's just clear and concise communication, really. I mean, and knowing and having the respect for your partner to just allow them more time than the game.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the biggest thing is just give them more time than the game.
Well, I have admitted many times on the show that I don't have a super addictive personality, but when it comes to video games, I do.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
It's one of those where, I mean, when the wife and kids are gone, I like get this like energy. I'm like, wait a second, I have no responsibilities right now.
Yeah.
And I get like all excited and I get like a little snack off to the side. I'm like, all right, what game I'm just going to blow my brain out? Lately, it's been Rocket League.
Okay.
I don't think there's any game that's as like, the reason I like games is
very
because,
dynamic.
Yeah, my
very
brain's
explosive.
always all over the place thinking about a million things. I have all these responsibilities. When you have a video game, and especially one that's very quick, fast paced,
Right.
if you look away for like a split second, you're dead, right?
Right.
I don't think there's any game that I've ever personally played that is more intense in that line than Rocket League. It's like you have to be on every single, like one little half second mess up and you're gone.
Absolutely.
But I'm not very good at it either. So I'm like, I got to play more to get better and more than better and more than better. And
what that does is that ties in your emotional regulation. So gaming can be a tool for emotional regulation. You're playing this game, you're committed to this game, you want to beat this game, and you keep losing. What are you going to do? Are you going to throw your controller and are you going to rage quit? Are you going to take a minute? You're going to sit with those feelings that you're having and you're like, no, we're going to nail down and we're going to get this done. And then you're going to feel proud of yourself whenever you finish it, you know?
Yeah.
breathe deeply, positive attitude.
Yes.
Go lose again.
right. I guess that's just a skill issue.
I'm just proud that as an old man who I don't game a lot, but I picked up Rocket League maybe a year or so ago. And the fact that I can rank up into the diamond area, I'm content with that. I'm pretty happy. But I want to go pro. I know that's never going to happen. 1 hour a day is not enough.
Yeah.
Right.
But maybe someday when I graduate from children, I've got too many years. But by then, my brain's going to be too addled. So I've just given up on the dream.
I don't know. If you keep gaming, you'll keep it sharp. Give it something to do.
Have you seen that study that came out that said the doctors, or specifically surgeons who use video games, have a 25% higher success rate?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Better
really?
outcomes.
I believe I got
It's
that
hand-eye
right. I
coordination.
might have got it backed up there. That's a good Rachel one right there. So, did you already? What is going on, Rachel? You're on point today.
it.
Let's go. Out of 33 surgeons from Beth Israel Medical Center in New York who participated in the study, 9 doctors played video games at least 3 hours per week, which isn't that much.
Right.
No.
But they made 37% fewer errors, performed 27% faster, and scored 42% better in the test of surgical skills. That's insane.
That's incredible.
But is that like a chicken egg thing? Like, is it they're the type of person that play video games, and so that type of person is better at surgery, or did the video games make them better at surgery?
I mean, honestly, I would say that it's more of a
I think that the video games made them better at surgery.
I would agree with that.
I do. Because if you think about if you're training for a marathon or you're working out or something, you're not just going to run to train for that marathon, right? You're
Okay,
also going to do
yeah.
some strength training. You're going to do some dynamic stretching and things like that.
Good
So
diet.
playing right and playing video games is a piece of that puzzle. It's that hand-eye coordination. It's keeping those muscles sharp. It's seeing with your eyes and doing with your hands. And I absolutely think that playing video games is a direct result of those outcomes.
I mean,
100%.
at the same time, though, you have to consider that maybe it's just the competitive nature of the person. It
Mhm.
could just be that they genuinely just enjoy getting better at things because they want to be elite at it. And a lot of the people that play video games generally do that. So, I mean, it could be a personality trait more.
Could be.
That's what I'm thinking. It could be that, could be a little bit of both.
Right.
I'm biased, so I want to believe that if I play video games, I'm going to be a better
Could be a
podcaster.
neurosurgeon, yeah.
Yeah.
But the reason I like it, that like I brought up earlier, is you are hyper focused,
Mhm.
which in a way is kind of meditation, right? So
Right.
focus training is just focusing on one thing constantly without letting those other thoughts come in. So it's almost in a way mental health gaining. And I mean,
Right.
Yeah,
there are
no,
already
it is.
studies that talk about that. But like everything, there's, I guess, moderation in all things is important. So
Balance.
3 hours a day is what they were saying those doctors did. If
Right.
you're doing, WoW for a 14-hour stint, which I know we've all been there,
Yeah.
that's
Mhm.
probably outside the limit of healthy.
Yeah.
Right.
No, 100%. I can't even disagree with that. But I've definitely done it.
So we've gotten a lot from you on
Yeah.
the video game side. Let's switch paces a little bit.
Sure.
Let's talk about a little bit about you.
Yeah. Okay.
Give us a little background.
Sure. So my name is Candace. I am 31 years old and I am a marketing professional. I kind of fell into that job through the course of all the odd jobs that I've done over the lifetime because I have ADHD and I don't stay places very long. I tend to get a little bit bored or I get a little bit antsy and I want a challenge. And so that kind of job hopping over the past 10 years, I began to notice a trend. And that trend was that I just really love telling stories to people. I really love getting people on board with things, bringing people together. I like the psychology aspect of marketing. I like being able to get into the minds of the audience that I'm speaking to. And so I kind of found that common vein and put it together and landed on marketing, advertising, communications. And so that's what I do now for my full-time gig. I've been a photographer as well for the past 10 years, which ties right back into storytelling, capturing those moments. I'm a very documentary style photographer. I don't want to artificially inflate these moments. I want these to be authentic memories that you're sharing with your family. A photo shoot with me is less about the outcome of the photos and more about the experience that you're having with me when you're taking those photos. I don't want, mom to be stressed out on the brink of tears. I don't want the 4-year-old to be screaming, crying, taking their pants off. And I don't want dad to sit there like this the entire time, with his arms crossed. I want you to come together as a family and spend time together, enjoy each other's company and take some pretty pictures. And that's just as important part of the process for me when it comes to my photography work. And so that piece has bled over into every facet of my life. The way that I show up in the world is I just want to leave things better than when I found them. And so if that's a 10-minute conversation that I have with a stranger on the street, or that's a more in-depth conversation because somebody's having a hard time and they pick up the phone and they call me, I just want you to be better for having been around me. I just want your life to be improved as a result of me being in it. Full stop.
I love it. I love it. I'm all about that. Making things better than you found them. You know, as a former Eagle Scout, I guess
There you go.
once an Eagle Scout, always, I don't know.
Hey,
But
I was a Girl Scout.
hey,
Silver
let's go.
award.
Daughter
Let's
just
go.
joined the Girl Scouts, and they're selling stuff other than cookies now. It's almost
Shocking.
blasphemous.
It is.
Is it
Truly.
popcorn
Candles
too?
and stuff.
How dare they?
Actually, the chocolate covered almonds were on point. I will say
Okay.
that. I guess they do the cookies still. It's just
Right,
the one
right.
time a year. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
we all know what I'm excited about.
There you go.
But
there you go.
Candace, you said that you were diagnosed with ADHD. It was how old were you when you knew were diagnosed?
Right. So I was diagnosed with ADHD in elementary school. And so I had lived, my entire life being on and off medication, having ADHD and knowing that I had ADHD, but it just felt like there was a piece of the puzzle that was missing. It just felt like it wasn't telling the full story. I would medicate the ADHD and that aspect of my life would get better. My brain would kind of quiet down a little bit. I would be able to, if you think of your thoughts as like a jumbled up ball of yarn when you have ADHD. When you're medicating your ADHD, it's more like a brand new skein and you can start pulling that yarn out and one thought just comes out after another. And so whenever I was medicating the ADHD, I was able to think more clearly. I was able to complete tasks more effectively. But I was still really, really struggling with emotional regulation. I was really, really struggling in my interpersonal relationships. I was still really, really struggling with keeping a job, despite being medicated, despite being in therapy. So that ended up leading to a diagnosis of borderline personality disorder. And I say it like that because there are a lot of women out there misdiagnosed with borderline personality disorder. Misdiagnosed with borderline personality disorder. BPD has kind of become a coverall for doctors that don't want to investigate deeper issues or just aren't educated enough on what autism looks like in girls. Autism as a young girl presents a lot differently than autism as a young boy. And what I mean by that is if you think of, masking, which is something that most autistic people can do or just kind of innately know to do. They mirror people, they see what's around them, and they kind of mold themselves after that. If they get a positive response, that reinforces that mask and they continue to do that thing. If they get a negative response, then they take that part of the mask out of the equation, and then they try something new until they just feel where they fit in. We never do truly feel like we fit in, but we're trying, and that's part of the mask, right? So when you're a little girl, you are told how to be a little girl, what to say, what to do, how to act, how to dress, what to wear, how to present yourself in social situations. You're kind of given a rule book. And so if you are a high masking autistic girl, chances are nobody's going to know. Nobody's going to know because we become masters of blending into our environment.
Because you're acting correctly.
It's a very,
already.
Right. It's a very internal struggle in young girls. And so what that does is it starts to pick at you with these little bits of trauma over the years, these little things where you feel a reaction much strongly than your peers appear to feel them. And so then you start to think, why do I feel so strongly about this minor inconvenience? Everybody's telling me it's not a big deal. And here I am in tears having a breakdown over it because it was just like the straw that broke the camel's back. You don't know that you're having an autistic meltdown. Nobody around you knows that you're having an autistic meltdown. All they know is that you were fine and now you're not and you're freaking out. And you need to go to your room and you need to be quiet and you need to deal with it. And so those little pieces of trauma over the years develop into CPTSD, complex post-traumatic stress disorder. And complex trauma is a lot different than what we think about when we think of your typical PTSD. We think of one big major event in your life that has affected you from that point forward. Complex trauma is woven into every facet of your personality. It's woven into how you show up in the world, how you form relationships, how you talk to people, how you feel about yourself, your confidence. And so how do I tie this back in? So you have complex trauma, which then reinforces the instability. and the poor emotional regulation. It makes it harder for you to keep your composure. It makes you easily triggered. It makes you unstable. And these are a lot of the same symptoms that people with BPD share. BPD is also born out of trauma. It's a trauma wound in the early childhood development that leads to what we call borderline personality disorder in adulthood. And so in my experience, BPD never fit the mold for me because I was not a violent person. I was not a dangerous person. I never was physically harmful to anybody in my life. I was never, choosing to be vitriolic or unkind or mean. But I would sometimes have big feelings that I did not know where to put them. I didn't know how to express them. I didn't know how to move past them. I would ruminate on them and I would get upset, and it would be impossible for me to not get upset. The moment that I would make some progress toward, finding my center again, the thoughts would just take off and down that toilet I would go. And it wasn't until I was 29 years old that I had a therapist sit down with me and say, "Have you considered autism?" I had considered autism at that point because I'm on TikTok. And, TikTok algorithm does what the TikTok algorithm does. And during lockdown in 2020, I'm spending a lot of time getting to know myself. I'm spending a lot of time alone. I'm spending a lot of time not being social, not talking to people, not being out in places, not using my mask. And I kind of started to realize that, maybe there was a piece that was missing after all. ADHD, BPD, it wasn't telling the full story because I was so stable. I was thriving in lockdown. I mean, my kids and I, we were on routines. We had systems. The house was clean all the time. I was happy. My kids were happy. We were doing arts and crafts. We were doing activities. And I was thriving. And the moment that I had to re-enter the real world, the moment that I had to go back and interact with people and work a job and maintain that stability outside of the home, where there are things outside of my control and outside of my systems and outside of my routines, I floundered. I struggled. And it led to burnout. Autistic burnout is something that a lot of high-masking autistic people deal with. It looks like loss of function, loss of skill, depression, anxiety, can't get out of bed, can't feed yourself, you have no idea how to move forward past that. Complete skill regression. You're just a shell of the person that you once were because that mask is shattered and all that you're left with is your disability at the end of the day. And that was rough. That was 2022 that happened, right before I met this guy, in fact.
Hi.
Like 3 months before I met this guy.
So 3 months before you met him, I don't know the correct terminology, but you were, for lack of a better term, diagnosed with autism, something you thought you may have already had.
Right.
And you said you got that idea from TikTok. And I've heard from a lot of people that are like, man, I think I might be ADHD. I think I might have autism because of that same thing.
Right.
Do you think there's validity to that, or obviously you do in your situation because you actually you spoke to a professional and they confirmed that. I'm curious because my algorithm says that I'm the same way.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, do I need to go like, do you feel like you found a benefit from understanding what that is by talking to someone and
100%. Yeah. No, I first of all, self-diagnosis is valid. Self-diagnosis is valid for a variety of reasons, notwithstanding how difficult it is to get a diagnosis in adulthood, how difficult it is to get a diagnosis as a woman. There's a lot of barriers there.
Is it specifically for autism or is it just like overarching that you're seeing?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
Obviously, there's barriers to mental health care services. They can be expensive for a lot of people if you don't have health insurance. And even if you do have health insurance, they don't often, have really robust coverage for mental health services. And so there can be a financial barrier to diagnosis, but there can also be a barrier that, the DSM is not keeping up with what we are seeing in our world.
DSM?
Yes. I cannot tell you what DSM stands for. Hold on. It is, she's going to pull it up. There you go. Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. There you go.
Okay.
of mental disorders. And so,
that's like the official how we describe things in words
right.
as far as mental disorders
right.
go. Okay.
Mental health is a new field. Whether we want to
right.
admit it or not, it is very, very new.
You look at the history of psychology and it's all like,
absolutely.
oh, we were wrong. Oh, we were wrong.
Yeah.
Oh, we were wrong. And still to the
Right.
day, it's still, oh, we are wrong. And at least
right.
we understand it.
Right.
Yeah.
And autism itself is a very new diagnosis. I mean, the first person ever diagnosed with autism just passed away recently.
Oh,
the
really?
first person ever diagnosed with autism. And so when we think of it in terms of that, autism is not only still widely misunderstood, it's also widely misunderstood in how it presents in women specifically.
Right.
Little boys are diagnosed with autism at a much larger rate than little girls are, unless you are, in a more severe part of the spectrum, because it is a spectrum. And so you have people like myself who are very high masking, who have the privilege of being able to kind of assimilate, who have the privilege of being able to kind of blend in and still work a job. And most of my struggle is very internal. I don't know if that is just because of my particular brand of autism, or if it's just because I was undiagnosed for so long and that's a learned behavior. But for me, most of the time, you don't know that I'm autistic unless I tell you that I'm autistic. I've been able to really kind of blend in that way. And so there's a variety of reasons why self-diagnosis is valid, and so yourself better than anybody. You spend the most time with yourself than anybody else. And so if you are seeing things that you resonate with, that in your heart and in your spirit to be true, this affects me, this makes me feel validated, this makes me feel seen, then chances are you might want to go down that pathway. For me, diagnosis gave me the opportunity to say, hey, these problems that I've been having my entire life, these things that people have told me are hurting them, these things that, have led me to not be able to sustain a relationship, not be able to sustain a job, be labeled unstable, be labeled messy, these things that I've been trying to change about myself for my entire life, I actually can't change. And that's not my fault. And so embracing those parts of me that I had rebelled against for so long, that I had rejected for so long, that I had said, this is not me, I can do better, I can be better, that ultimately led to me burning out. And embracing those gave me the freedom to get to know myself, to learn what my triggers are, what my sensory needs are, what my emotional needs are, what my life looks like when I'm accommodating my needs, what my life looks like when I'm not ignoring them, pretending that they don't exist and just trying to blend in, but saying, hey, I'm autistic. I'm going to wear headphones because I get overwhelmed in the grocery store. I'm autistic. I'm going to take 10 minutes in a quiet, dark room before I have to go discipline my kids because I'm kind of losing my mind right now and I just need a minute. And it has given me a more beautiful life than I could have imagined 2 years ago. And that is a direct result of being diagnosed or just accepting a diagnosis and saying, hey, this is who I am. This is what my life looks like.
Setting a different expectation for yourself.
Right.
Like in my line of work, setting expectations is like 99% of success.
Absolutely.
And so you're not changing anything, but your expectations do change. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, the new expectation, I'm allowed to be okay with it.
It's not even just changing your expectations. It's changing your path to get there.
Right.
I still have the same goals for myself. I still have the same things that I want to do and the things that I want to achieve, but my path to achieving them might look a little bit different now. It might take me a little bit longer now. I'm not going to push myself into another burnout just because I can, because I don't know that I'm not meeting my needs. I'm going to be more gentle with myself. I'm going to be kinder with myself. I'm going to be empathetic and loving toward myself and say that I'm not a perfect person. I don't have to be a perfect person. Even neurotypical people have bad days.
Right.
And just because I'm overwhelmed in this moment doesn't make me any less valid. It doesn't make me any less, kind, hardworking, strong. It just means that I'm having a bad day and that's okay.
Also, I think one of the main things that I've noticed is that when, not to throw you under the bus here, but one of the things that she struggles with is a lot of the time it's, okay, I have to do 16 different things and this is all on my mind. And
they are equal rank in my mind.
Right.
If there are 16 things to do, I cannot sort those in order of importance. They are
Right.
all demanding my attention right now.
And so usually when that happens and she's feeling that overwhelm, she'll come to me and she'll ask like, okay, I don't know what to do. This is all the things that I need to do. And I'm like, all right, cool. we'll just take it step by step and we'll do this
Yeah,
way.
I can brain dump to them and I can get them out of my head and I can say, okay, these are on paper now. Let's look at them objectively. Let's talk about them and let's come up with a path forward.
Right.
Prioritize, a little
Absolutely.
triage. Okay.
Yeah.
And just, I mean, it feels like it takes longer, but it realistically doesn't. Because if she's in a state of overwhelm,
She's not getting started.
yeah, like it's just, it's gonna stay stagnant for as long as it takes to start on one of the topics, I guess.
Well, and it's that piece of executive dysfunction that,
Right.
Both people with autism and ADHD and a variety of other, disorders struggle with, that executive dysfunction. I'm sitting on the couch. I'm not just sitting on the couch. My mind is going a million miles a minute. I
Right.
am upset with myself for sitting on this couch. I am talking very unkind to myself for sitting on this couch, but I cannot get off this freaking couch.
Right.
I cannot just start that task. That task initiation is the hardest part. And having a partner that is cognizant of that, open to that, and willing to address that when we need to is just so incredible, because at the end of the day, I still have autism. I have support needs. I have a disability, and I never want my partner to feel like a caretaker. So a lot of that is that communication piece and saying, hey, if you don't have space for this right now, that's okay, but this is what I'm struggling with. Can we come back to it in 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour? Can we set a time and say, hey, we're going to deal with this now. We're going to deal with this later. We're going to deal with this, whenever.
Right.
But being able to say, have enough respect for you as a person and what you have going on, and not just encroaching on you and not just bleeding all over you and saying, I'm overwhelmed and I need to do this now.
Yeah. I think that just ties into just communication.
Right.
Like, and it's not enough to just communicate. You have to be an effective communicator, and you have to be a good listener too. And I think that being an effective communicator can be undervalued in society, I guess, as a whole, which sounds pretentious,
Well, I think people just feel like they don't have enough time. They just want to get to the point. But, sometimes you got to spend a little bit of time making sure that your point is heard and is across, I think that I tend to over communicate sometimes, because I'm so accustomed to feeling misunderstood. I'm so used to people misinterpreting what I mean or applying their own intention to my words. And so I feel like I have to really make sure you understand where I'm coming from when I say these things. Like there's no malice attached, or, there's no frustration here. I'm just genuinely asking a question, or I'm just genuinely needing this answer. And so I do have a tendency to over communicate, I think. But other than that, I think we do a pretty good job.
Better than under communicating.
Right. Absolutely.
No,
Absolutely.
I would much rather have somebody over communicate to me, so that way they can stress the importance and I can see what's important to them and what we need to focus on, I guess.
Well, and it's like, I think growing up, I heard a lot of, you just have to be right. You just have to be right all the time. No. I don't have to be right, but I have to be correct. And if I'm not correct, then I'm going to need that information out of you so that you can tell me how I can get correct.
Right.
Because if I have an opinion on something, or I think that I'm holding something as a truth about myself or about somebody else, and you're not in alignment with that, tell me what you know. Please tell me what you know so that we can either get on the same page or I can have a more complete opinion on the subject. I don't want to just, have my core truths and take those as fact and not ever consider other people's perspectives. I don't need to be right, but I do have this desire, this deep desire to be correct all the time.
Yep.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, hey.
Well, I'm relating to that. No, there's a lot of things that I've seen. You were talking about self-diagnosis on TikTok, and for a couple of years now, my feed, I don't do it a lot. I've never actually been on TikTok, to be honest with you, but like whether it's like I used to do Facebook quite a bit, I since have not, but every once in a while I get on Instagram for the podcast. But it seems every time I do go on, which it's just flooded with, this is how you work with ADHD, or this is how you work with autism. I'm like, I just assumed everyone else was seeing those same things. And I'm wondering if it's, I just have friends that have ADHD and autism are posting that, and I stop to, educated look at it, or if the, AI overlords are telling me that I'm actually autistic and Neurodivergent, is that
Right.
the
Yeah.
term?
I think,
That's the term.
and I think that, there's a lot of people that say, oh, everybody thinks that they're autistic these days, or everybody has ADHD these days. And really, my answer to that is, what does it matter to you? Because my autism and my ADHD is not an excuse for bad behavior. I'm
Right.
still going to make sure that I apologize when I need to apologize, and I'm going to meet my obligations when I have them, and I'm going to be a respectful person. Like, I still have those accountabilities, And so if knowing that I'm autistic and kind of shaping my life in a different way and accommodating myself in a different way helps me to be a better person, what does it matter to you, whether I say that I'm autistic or I don't, And so to those people who are questioning if self-diagnosis is valid or questioning if they have ADHD or autism, try it. Try some of these suggestions that you're seeing. See if you can incorporate those into your life. If they help you, they help you. It doesn't matter. What the end goal for me is for people to feel seen, feel heard, be able to show up in a world that is exhausting, that is you're bombarded with bad information every day. As soon as you walk out the door, the prices of everything is so expensive. Being alive is hard these days. So if accommodating yourself makes it a little bit easier, go for it.
Yeah,
go for it. Allow yourself
you.
to do that. Yeah.
No, I mean, that's, yeah.
I mean, really, that's what it boils down to is it doesn't, autism is not an excuse. And I'm speaking specifically for myself. I'm not speaking on behalf of all of the autism community, because there are absolutely people who are far more disabled than me. I have a very privileged position to be able to speak on this topic and to be able to have lived my life for as many years as I did without having that diagnosis. There are many people who don't have that opportunity. And I often wonder, if I had been diagnosed in childhood, if I would even be where I am today, If I knew that I was autistic, would I have taken the risks that I did that paid off? Would I have taken the chances that I did that paid off for me? Would I have tried the things that I have that have gotten me to where I am today if I knew that I was autistic when I was in childhood? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But I'm grateful to be where I am today. I'm grateful to have an understanding of my neurotype, an understanding of how my brain works and how I perceive the world. And there's nothing but gratitude for that. What is that hurting, buddy? Who cares?
Yeah.
And you said the word disabled a few times. Do you feel it's a disability it holds you back?
I do. I do feel like it's a disability. I mean, obviously, I don't feel like I'm defined by my disability, but it absolutely has hindered me with regard to like career progression, if we want to use that as an example. There was a job that I worked at back in 2022, and I really enjoyed that job. I did web design. It was my nerdy little thing. I just went in, put my headphones on, had my hoodie, and I just did my things on the computer, and then I clocked out and I went home, and it was great, and I loved it. But there were a lot of other things happening in my life, in my personal life, and I was not able to separate the two. I did not have the ability to compartmentalize what was happening in my personal life and continue to show up in my professional life. And ultimately, what that led to was burnout. And I had asked for, some unpaid time off work. I just need a break. I just need everything to stop for a minute. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I know that it's not great and I just need a little bit of time. And that time was not respected. I didn't ask for it in a great way. I didn't have the social skills to ask for it in a great way. I didn't have the emotional regulation to come at my boss in a correct way. And I was like, I just need some time. I just need some time. You don't have to pay me for it. I promise I'll come back. And they're like, well, how long? I was like, I don't know, a week, maybe. I don't know. I ended up losing my job. As a result of that. And I think that if I had known that I was autistic during that time in my life, then, maybe I would have been able to kind of crisis manage a little bit better. Maybe I would have been able to cope with things a little bit better. Maybe I would have been able to have some accommodations at work that would have helped and made life a little bit easier for me to digest. And so I wouldn't have job hopped so many times. I would have been able to stay put. And I have stayed put. I'm in my current role for a little over a year now, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. I'm thriving. I love my job now. I love my coworkers now. They all know that I'm autistic. I've been able to be open with them about that. It doesn't hinder me in my role. It doesn't hinder me in being able to build those relationships with my coworkers. And I'm very fortunate that they're understanding of that. And they have come to view my perspective as valuable, especially especially in marketing, that pattern recognition, being able to see what works and what doesn't, being able to see into the future, so to speak, like, hey, if we do this, then this, then this, then this, then this, we need to consider that. That's absolutely an asset in this job and in this particular field. And being able to lean into that has been pretty cool.
Well, soon we're going to be able to have things like Neuralink, which are just going to like delve straight into our brain.
Yeah.
We're just going to be able to flip a switch and be like, oh, I'm not autistic anymore.
Yeah.
Or we turn up that autism and go straight on Elon Musk and just go super, going back to the video games. I just saw a report that he's #1 now on Diablo as far as speedrun in a dungeon. Is that true, Rachel?
Really?
I think you're in the more of the Diablo realm. Do you play Diablo?
I'm gonna need you to
that?
dethrone him expeditiously.
I have. I haven't touched Diablo 4 in a long time though. So on launch, I really enjoyed it, but it just got to a point where they changed a bunch of stuff. And I was like, I don't know that I want to.
But they kind of have to change it up to get the new season because then it's a little fresh. It's the race to the finish type of season. I think the seasons are necessity on a game like that. When if you want to continue, look at this guy. Sorry, if people who aren't watching, we just pulled up a picture of Elon Musk and what is that samurai get up? Elon Musk apparently just became the #1 Diablo 4 player in the world. So not only does he run SpaceX, Tesla, Boring Company, Neuralink. Now he's going to be the Doge King. Yeah. And he is also #1 Diablo. Dude, so much people online hate that dude. And then the other half worship this guy. And
very polarizing figure, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, it's in between. There's no like, it's not black and white. He's not a fucking savior, but he's also, he's not like the devil either. He's obviously done quite a lot of good for this world.
And I think that Elon Musk is a good case study on what an autistic person can do when their support needs are being met. Obviously Elon comes from enormous privilege. He's been able to have his support needs met his entire life. His whole life was catered to him. He was able to have the help that he needed, the resources that he needed. He didn't have to worry about where his food was coming from. His parents really leaned into how brilliant he was at a young age, and they made sure that they fostered that and developed that and grew that. And a lot of autistic people don't have that opportunity. They worry where their next meal is going to come from, so they don't have time to master pattern recognition and apply that to a business world and develop all of these other talents that form up these companies. And I think that that's a testament to why it's so important to either get a diagnosis or just accept your diagnosis if you're self-diagnosed and decide, what are those support needs that I have? Where am I feeling lack? Where do I need help from people? Because all people on the autism spectrum, regardless of whether you're high support needs or low support needs, have support needs.
Honestly, I think Elon is an interesting figure for the simple fact that, like, it's not even necessarily that, because forgive me if I'm wrong, but he didn't actually go to college, right?
He did.
Or something of that nature.
I believe he has an engineering degree. He went up to, and I've never read his biography, but just a little bit I've gathered from online, from South Africa. Everyone says his dad owned an emerald mine. Not really true. He didn't have as much money as lots of people think, but he went up to Canada, went from Canada, down to University of Pennsylvania.
Okay.
I'm not sure if he graduated with a degree or not. Oh yeah, Bachelor of Arts in Physics and a Bachelor of Science in Economics. Oh, I don't know. He had an economics degree. University's Wharton School. So he definitely is a neurodivergent type folk. I think he's got, what was it, Asperger's or
so it's all autism now.
So there's no like,
the DSM
so that's the hard
has been
part.
updated.
Like, how do you keep up with
Well, it's a spectrum.
It's a spectrum.
Yeah.
So it's like,
and so think of it like a pie.
So it's like everyone's autistic, but it's like you're on this spectrum and they're on that spectrum, or is it like a 3D spectrum, or is it just like it's
a piece. It's a pie. And each piece of the pie is a particular kind of trait of autism, if you will. You have to have all the pieces of the pie to be autistic. If you're autistic, you tick every single one of those boxes.
Oh, okay.
Some of those pie slices might be a little larger than others. Some of them might be a little bit smaller than others. But you still have to have every piece of the pie to be diagnosed with autism. Right. And so Asperger's is now recognized as just being autism. It's just level 1 autism. It's low support needs. It's somebody like myself or like Elon who can kind of show up in the world in in a different way.
So here we go. We got meltdowns, eye contact, social issues. What's that yellow one say? Sensitivity.
Noise, texture, light, etc.
Okay, sensitivity to noise, texture, light, etc. Need for routine. I'm reading upside down here, so forgive me. Executive function, communication problems, which I have, restricted interests, anxiety, and stimming.
Absolutely.
I don't know what all those are, but so I guess
let's walk through them.
yeah. What is stimming?
Stimming, fidgeting.
Ooh,
So,
I got that one. I'm
yeah.
number 10 right there. I don't know
I-
if you always notice I'm going like this.
I stim a lot more openly now that I know that I'm autistic, and I've spent the last couple of years kind of getting to know myself. But what they looked like for me before I was diagnosed with autism, and when I was still very high masking, things like fixing my hair constantly, even if my bangs aren't in my face,
So
pulling
that's
them
one
out of
thing
my
I don't
face.
do is fix my hair constantly.
Twirling
Yeah.
this, or I would do with my fingers. I don't know if there's a camera, but I would tap my thumb and my forefinger, my middle finger, my ring finger, my pinky finger, and just kind of do this
Mhm.
over and over,
It's
real
actually
subtly.
that's an anxiety exercise.
Yeah, crossing
Yeah,
my
yeah,
legs and
something
kind
like
of
this.
shaking my ankle, and that is something that's also you see with people with ADHD, and so that was never really, a red flag for me. That
Is
was
there a
something that was just
crossover
always-
usually with ADHD
There
and autism?
absolutely can be. Yeah, not everybody who has ADHD has autism, but a lot of people who have autism also have ADHD.
Right.
So what about meltdowns? What would that be? Just like you
Well,
freak out over shit?
This
It's-
morning,
It's kind of a state.
It's kind of a state of overwhelm. It's like you just get so worked up because there's so much on your plate. It might not even really be that much, right? Like to like a quote unquote normal, I guess is the worst
Neurotypical.
word. Neurotypical, I guess is the better word. For a neurotypical person, it might just be just like a normal casual weekend. But because there's different moving parts and you don't know the exact circumstances, or you don't have, like, I'm not sure what we're getting for food. So like that could be debilitating. That can send somebody into a tizzy.
Okay.
So what that eventually does is usually it gets to a point where it's just a state of overwhelm, where it's like shallow breaths, almost like a panic attack. I
Yeah,
wouldn't
it
say
can-
that
it
it
can
is
look like a panic attack.
but
Okay.
Yeah.
yeah.
So that's one
Big,
that
big
might
feelings.
kick me off the autism scale because I'm pretty level-headed in
Yeah.
most situations. It takes a lot. Like I joke about how I have a giant fuse, but it's also a big bomb when it goes
There you
off.
go.
Right.
But it's very rare. Like I don't even think my children have ever seen me flip out.
Yeah.
I have, but I don't think it's very rare. It takes a
Right.
lot to get me to that point. So that might get me off the autistic
Okay.
scale there.
Well,
For
I mean, so it's not. It's important to remember that like it is a spectrum, right? So it's not if meltdowns isn't something that like you really engage with, right? Like that isn't something that resonates with you. Just because that column isn't necessarily like anything,
Full to
it's just like a
10.
1.
Mhm.
Like your eye contact might be a 10. Your social issues might be a 9.
Rachel, you know me. How's my eye contact?
eye
I'm staring
contact
at you
is a
now,
fun
but-
one. I love talking about eye contact because that is the one that led me think that I was not autistic all this time.
Okay.
Because I make great eye
Yeah,
contact.
fantastic.
But it's
Right.
not
Because
too much
I was taught to make eye contact
Oh, it's a
because I was
masking
told
thing.
that you
Mhm.
make eye contact when you're listening to somebody because it
Okay.
shows that you're interested in what they have to say. But if I'm sitting across the table from somebody that I perceive as a friend and I'm making eye contact like this with them the whole time that we're talking,
I'm like,
they might think I'm into them. They might think that I'm being weird, that yeah, absolutely. So eye contact, I thought, kicked me off the list for a while there until I realized that I actually don't enjoy eye contact. I just learned how to do it.
Interesting. Because like that brings me back to meltdowns. It's like I'm a big fan of people focusing and training themselves to be more stoic because I think there's a huge benefit to that in life.
Mhm.
So maybe there's learned behaviors that although, call it masking or
Absolutely.
call it hey, I see a benefit to focus. So you focus more and maybe that allows you, I guess masking would be the term in that
Post
situation.
diagnosis, my meltdowns have become more frequent but less severe. So what
Oh,
that looks
okay.
like for me is that I'm not just shoving things down all the time. I cry a lot. I cry
all the time.
almost daily.
Like not a bad thing, but
And it doesn't even have to be in a bad way, just like in an overwhelmed way. Or if I just don't know what I'm going to do next, I cry.
Just allow yourself
a lot.
that release.
I allow
more.
myself to feel those feelings
Right.
on a
Okay.
more regular basis now. So my meltdowns are more frequent, if you will, but far less severe, far less consequence for the people that love me, for the relationships that I have in my life.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So social issues, how would you define that?
So I think on the surface, people look at social issues as like inability to form or maintain friendships. I don't have a problem making friends. I have a problem keeping friends because it is exhausting. And
Right.
because, I commit so much of myself to my partner and to my kids. And it takes so much work for me to be a good mom and to be a good partner and to be a good employee that at the end of the day, I don't know that I have it in me to commit to being a good friend as well. And so that makes it difficult for me to maintain friendships. It's difficult for me to form those friendships because I'm going to have a wall from the moment that I meet you. Because
Right.
what if you like me? What if you want to be my friend? And then you want to be my friend. And that means that I have to text you. And then if I don't text you back, what if you hate me? And so it's those kind of thoughts that I have that kind of butt up against the social issues. It's less about being able to do those things and more about having capacity for them for me.
Mhm.
I'm capable, but I might not have capacity.
Right.
And I think my friends these days wouldn't agree with me, but who I was most of my life and into my adolescence, young adulthood, I'm like a 9 out of 10 on the social issues.
Yeah.
It'd be everyone tells me I'm an extrovert. I am not. I'm the person that I'm like,
Right.
no, I love party mode. Don't get me wrong, but
Yeah.
that's not Jace. That's
Yeah.
a party Jace.
Yeah.
And
that's how
don't
it-
get me wrong. That's a
That's an
great
ass.
party Jace. Everyone
Yeah.
loves party
Yeah.
Jace. But then when I'm like not ready for that, no one wants to be around me.
Yeah.
Nobody. All right. Well, we're just exposing all of my mental
Yeah,
issues.
call your therapist.
Sensitivity. No, I need one. Actually, I did
You don't have a therapist?
I was talking.
Everybody needs a therapist.
I was actually on a podcast and someone made me promise to see a therapist.
Yeah.
Just as hey, all people should, just to normalize it, whether you need
Absolutely.
it or not, right? And so I got on, it was just like the BetterHelp or one of those like
Yeah.
online ones because it's, again, it's affordable, like you're saying.
Accessible.
Right.
Right.
And the name of my therapist, Jesus.
Oh, you're kidding me.
That's
yeah,
wild.
I mean Jesus, but
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
still,
Right.
dude had a gold chain. I think it was like from Miami or something. I
That's
don't want
dope.
to dox
I love
him, but I was like, yeah, this is my type of therapist.
Yeah,
I'm
this
legit
works.
talking to Jesus.
And it's important for you to have a good rapport with your therapist. You got to
Yeah.
like them. You might have to go through a couple bad apples to find one that you really mesh with. And there's no shame in that. Anybody who's listening, if you try therapy for the first time and you feel like it's not for you, just try again. Try somebody else. It's really important that you can be your most authentic self with your therapist.
And with online right now, yeah, to some people, $50 is a lot of money.
Mhm.
Right.
I would say that even if you just to get a sense of like, okay, I'm not crazy. I don't want to use the word crazy, but just having someone there that can kind of talk with you and talk about you without any, I guess, nervous. What am I trying to say? I need to actually study psychology so I know the words to use. But
Mhm.
let's move on to the next one because I've lost the rails on that one. Sensitivity to noise, texture, light. Yeah, definitely on that one.
100%.
Yep.
Yeah.
Need for routine. I don't know if I'm on with that one.
Okay, so what if I shaped your perspective and you don't think of routine as the same thing in and out and think of it more as like systems?
Yeah.
Do you have ways that you
well, that is
accommodate
me,
yourself
100% then, yeah.
on a daily basis? Your day-to-day may not look the same. Your schedule might not be the same every day, but do you have routines that you do before you do certain things
Like
or before you enter your podcasting space? Are you really committed to these systems that you've developed for yourself?
yeah, and like when you get home from work and if you know that you have like a bunch of stuff to do you take off your shoes?
Well, I take off my shoes at the
Gotta
door
keep the shoes on.
regardless. Might be a bad example just because
Well, right.
we just take it off. But I'm a
Or do you stay in your outside clothes so that you can get things done inside?
trying to think on this one. I'm very much like to create systems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But as far as following a routine, I would almost say I'm the antithesis of this. Like
Okay.
I don't want to do the same thing over and over and over. Like I'm constantly trying to find a different way. But
Yeah.
Do you have
You don't
a
want
favorite
monotony.
coffee cup and your coffee just doesn't taste the same out of any other cup?
No,
Anything
use
like that?
different one every day.
There you go.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
That's
that
fair.
might need for routine. No, I'm trying to think of a way that. Well, we'll go to the next one. I'll think about that
Mull
one.
it over a little bit.
Executive function. All right.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about this
Okay.
one, about what
Yeah.
executive functioning looks like. And you seem to resonate with I'm sitting on the couch, but I'm not really just sitting on the couch.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm thinking about XYZ and getting real upset with myself for not starting.
But then
Looking
you're
at the
still not
clock
getting off the
ticking
couch.
down,
Mhm.
15 minutes, 20
10
minutes.
out of 10 on that one.
Right.
Yeah, that's the spiral. You just have to get up and slap yourself in the face. Communication problems. I think that's a learned thing to the point where I can communicate well. But I think it's more, if I did fit into that one as communication problems, it's expressing myself when it really matters to me.
Mhm.
If
Yeah.
something's really emotional to me, it does not matter how much I want to describe what's going on. I just cannot.
Right.
And I have to force it out or use, the lovely alcohol that is
Right,
very
yeah.
useful to
That
get
truth
past
serum.
that. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Right.
Yeah. I think for me, communication problems show up in one, just feeling misunderstood my entire life, like we talked about, and having a tendency to over communicate my point to the point of exhaustion, just to make sure that you really, really understand what my intention is here.
Mhm.
But the inverse of that is if I'm doing something new or somebody's telling me to do something for the first time, I need every single bit of context that you can give me regarding that task, or I can't do it. I will take that literally. I will not understand. I will not be able to fill in the gaps of the information that you're telling me the way that somebody else might be. They might be able to look at, send X email to X person and ask about X and just literally execute that task and kind of fill in the undertones. I can't fill in the gaps. I can't fill in those undertones. I need you to tell me literally exactly what you need for me to do.
Gotcha.
Like all the information needs to be present in order for me to execute this task, kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Restricted interests.
So it's like hyperfixations. I have a few of those things that you tend to hyperfocus on, hobbies or interests that you have that you spend a lot of time dedicating to, a lot of time researching, something that you could write a thesis on.
Yeah.
You have anything
Okay.
like that?
Well, I will jump from point to point to point to point. The fact that I'm still doing a podcast after 3 years is insane, but I've stuck to it.
Yeah.
But I'm the type of guy that I'll pick up knitting until I can prove to myself I can, and then I'm like, all right,
And
on
if
to the
it's
next thing.
Don't
something
need that
that
anymore.
you've either already decided that you're not interested in, or you think that you wouldn't be interested in it, you can't participate in it. So restricted interest as in if I don't want to do that thing, I'm not doing that thing. I don't have interest in that thing. I don't want to hear you talk about that thing. I don't want to talk about that thing. Get it away from me.
Right.
Okay, so that one, if it counts with like a hyper focused here, and then jump to the next thing, hyper focused there, I could say maybe, but that one I'm not sure either how high on the scale I'd be on that one.
Yeah.
Anxiety's hit and miss with me. I think again that comes back to a learned skill of focus, of practicing stoicism. You
Right.
can get your anxiety levels down, but I don't think I've always been a super high anxiety type of person.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10 on
10
that
out of
one.
10
Well-
on the anxiety.
So anxiety is really, really interesting because it can present differently in like just about anybody.
Absolutely.
Like how somebody deals with anxiety and the learned behavior that your brain decided to take when that first started presenting or anything of that nature. It can get, it's very difficult to diagnose also because a lot of people say like, oh, I have anxiety disorders, but they're not entirely sure on how we can work on that or what medication I
think
should be taking and those types of things.
Anxiety can also be the root of some other symptoms like depression.
Right.
And depression becomes the bigger, scarier monster. And so the depression is what people are focusing on and not realizing that it was the anxiety that is causing the depression. The anxiety is the root of that depression, showing up in the world and overthinking everything all the time and not being able to execute and wondering about all these potentialities every time you walk out the door can be very depressing and disabling. It
Never
leads
mind.
you to analysis paralysis.
I'll give myself
and
a 10 out of 10 on
There
that
you go.
one.
Yeah, right.
No, and I have heard that, how anxiety and depression are just two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
I
Absolutely.
never imagined myself as someone being depressed or anxious or any of those things until later in life. And when you get a partner, someone who you start to trust, and they start giving you feedback, and you trust that feedback, and they speak honestly with you, they'll say something like, "Oh, you're just a perfectionist." You're like,
what do you mean?
See yourself as the opposite of that.
Right.
But then once you start looking at your actions, you're like, oh, that's why I'm always like, I can't start that task, because if I don't do it perfectly, what's the point?
Right.
I can't, it has to be perfect, or I'm never going to touch it.
My whole life, I considered myself to be very like chaotic neutral, type B, go with the flow, whimsy, cool, manic pixie dream girl, if you will. And then I'm in a relationship with this guy. We got 3 kids together. And it's like, I am type A. I am very type A.
Yeah.
I am very tightly wound up, very tightly controlled. I run a tight ship, and I need everything to be a certain way. I am not aloof. I am not a cool, chill girl at all, actually. There's great consequence for me being a cool, chill girl.
Yeah. No, it's really funny that she says that, because it's like, sometimes she'll get frustrated with how, like, just kind of, because I can come across as blasé. Like, I don't care, but I do care. I just, what's the point in stressing out over? Like, it's not going to make the situation better.
What do you mean? What's the point?
I care about you. I don't care about the excess emotions that you expect me to be showing back. Kind of thing.
Like, and so, and that ties into a much deeper conversation of for example, for me, it's I definitely have pathological demand avoidance. So it's like, if you tell me
pathological demand avoidance.
Yeah.
What's that?
So essentially, if you tell me to do something and it was something I was already planning on doing, now I'm not doing it.
A kinder way to say that. A kinder way to say that would be a pervasive drive for autonomy. So same acronym, same concept, but kinder language, because I'm autistic and language matters. Say what you mean what you say. We take things literally over here. Yeah. So a pervasive drive for autonomy. If my autonomy feels threatened, then you're not going to get what you want out of me. I need to feel like I am in control of my person, of my interests, of what I want to do. And so that can be complicated in a relationship.
It definitely can be.
Yeah, I'm a 12 out of 10 on that one.
There you go.
Show.
It's rough because she'll say like, hey, like, we need to get this done. When do you plan on doing that? And I'm just like, okay, I plan on doing it this time and whatever.
So help me God, though, if that time rolls around
and
that thing is not being done.
We'll be like 2 minutes to that time, and she'll be like, hey, so when are you gonna go take care of this? And I'm like, no,
I'm not going to do it now.
I'm like, no, I don't want to. I'm gonna.
Ship has sailed. You just messed it up.
Yeah, that's a perfect example of ways that we've learned to accommodate each other, because I do have a very strong need to be in control of things all of the time. And so needing help and asking for that help isn't enough for me. I need you to commit to like a time frame. Right. Like, are we talking 20 minutes, 30 minutes? Because that helps me. But then the other piece of that puzzle is that if 30 minutes roll around, I know to keep my freaking mouth shut and trust that my partner is going to do the things that he says that he's going to do. Right. Because I have no reason not to. You know, we've worked on that.
But also, it's important to note that I definitely have time blindness, especially when I'm on the computer. So if I'm on the computer, I am not aware of how much time has passed. So if I'm not actively paying attention to what time it is, like I'm.
Do you want to know my hack for that?
No idea.
Because I don't think you've caught on to it yet.
Probably not, and I don't think you should tell me.
Maybe I should.
He just said if you tell him, it's not going to happen.
It's fine. We've worked through enough. No, I walk into the room and you're playing on your computer, and I just like act like I'm looking for my phone or something. I'm like, hey, what time is it? And then you look at the time and you tell me what time it is, and it's an innocent enough question, but then you see what time it is and you're like, oh shit, I said I was going to do something.
That checks. I hate that.
My new thing is just trusting Siri. I just do like the, hey Siri, set a reminder for X amount of minutes, and then my brain can just I don't have to remember jack squat. Yep. Partially, my brain is starting to degenerate because, I'm past 40.
So what if I told you that that's a routine?
Oh.
Well, you got me.
That's a system. You're accommodating yourself.
Well, I always have been good at the mask part. My friends call me chameleon because any situation I jump in, whether it's like Houston down in Fifth Ward or up in Montana or whatever, I'm like, hey, what's up? I'll be the guy that goes to Hawaii and hangs out with my cousin. And 2 days later, I have a straight up Hawaiian accent, and it's not as like a I see it as when I went down to Brazil and tried to learn a different language, there's more to just saying the words.
Right.
You have to like act like them for them to not only open up to you.
Context.
Yeah. You have to like break down a barrier and be like, they're going to be able to be themselves around you before you can truly communicate. And so it's something that, you know, I was forced into it because I moved around a lot. But I leaned into it. Like I enjoyed being able to like very quickly be able to see what people were, be able to, you know, reflect that back to them and try to, well, you just described it word for word earlier with the whole masking thing. You know, I'm like, and
that ties into, you know, what I was talking about, how I jump around from job to job, right? Being that chameleon means that I am a high performer straight out of the gate. Like I am your rock star employee. I'm really excited. The dopamine is pumping. I'm doing a great job here. And then I'm masking my way through every single step of it until I ultimately end up in a burnout. And then I can no longer perform to the degree in which I demonstrated to you. I showed you that I could be this person. I can't be that person anymore. I lost it. It's gone. I've not been taking care of myself. I've not been restoring myself. I've not been meeting my needs. And so, you know, that leads to leaving the job and finding a new one. But with this current job, I took things much slower. I was like, I know who I am and I know what I can do and I don't need to show off. I got this job on my merits and I'm going to keep this job on my merits and I'm going to keep it a nice, even keeled pace and we're going to make it sustainable. Okay? Right. Sustainable.
Well, thank you for the, I now know I'm autistic. No, I do think it's important. Like as you were saying, self-diagnosis is valid or can be valid. And, you know, you shouldn't ignore that if you feel that way. Do you think it is healthy or necessary to talk with a professional to confirm or maybe help you work through the different terminology and how to react to it?
Do you want to start?
I think that like personally, it benefits you more because you're going to have more accessibility to different like things that are available to you or whatever your city might even be providing or that hospital might be providing. But with that being said, it's not necessarily, I'm not fully in the camp of like self-diagnosis being like okay, but I'm also not against it. Like I think that
it's not a black and white issue.
Yeah, it's like a self-awareness thing. It's if that resonates with you, what are you doing to set up systems for you? Because really at the end of the day, it's not really, the label doesn't really mean much of anything. What are you doing to set yourself up for success? And do you need that I guess administrative help? For me,
getting the actual diagnosis was important because I can't trust myself. You know, I don't know that I second guess myself a lot. I don't have a lot of confidence because of the things that have happened in my life and because of the experiences that I've had in life. And so if I didn't have that diagnosis to fall back on, I don't know that I would continue to accommodate myself. I think I'd maybe start down that path and try to make a change, but then I would revert back to those bad habits, to those things that were hurting me, to those things that were hurting the people that I loved. I think I needed that foundation of a diagnosis to lean on. I needed somebody else to tell me that I was autistic because otherwise I would have been like, am I making this up? Is this real? Am I gaslighting myself? Is this just me trying to make an excuse for these things? You know, I hated myself before my autism diagnosis. I'd spent my entire life trying to change things that ultimately I couldn't. And I wasn't changing them coming from a place of love. I wasn't changing them coming from a place of empathy and respect. I was changing them because I was miserable and I hated being alive and I hated myself. And I was just trying to drive those things out of me as hard as I could. And it wasn't working, obviously. And so getting that official diagnosis, having somebody trusted and professional to say, you are autistic, that I needed that. But not everybody else might not. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's case by case, really. Whatever is going to benefit you as a person more, I would say, is going to have more impact than your cousin telling you, hey, you should go to see a medical professional, and then you feeling like you don't need to. If you don't feel like you need to, then don't. Just,
And at the end of the day, it's
research
just
it.
about tools. I hope that if nothing else, that you or anybody that's listening to this walks away from this podcast with maybe a couple new coping mechanisms in their belt, things that they can pull out whenever they're having a hard time, or they're wondering if they're on the right path, or if they're feeling depressed or they're feeling anxious. Maybe now you can consider accommodating those things a little bit better and finding those little things that make your life easier at the end of the day.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not convinced that anyone's neurotypical. I think that, of this wheel that we're looking at, we're talking specifically about autism. And I think there is some bleed over into different, mental
Absolutely.
quote unquote disorders.
Right.
It's a matter of knowing yourself. What's the old philosophy thing? Know thyself. That's the whole part of it's being able to understand, when you have some external force coming at you, how do you really react?
Right.
And whether you have a title for all of your fucked uppery or not,
Yep.
the point is just being happy and being a source of happiness for others. They're not necessarily a
Absolutely.
source for others, but not negatively messing with others.
Yeah, I think my favorite way to say that is that it may not be your fault, but it is your responsibility.
Yeah.
It may not, whether that's childhood trauma or that's autism or that's ADHD or that's depression or that's PTSD or it's BPD, the list could go on and on and on. It's not your fault,
Right.
but it is your responsibility. It is something that you have to consider when you show up in the world. It's something that you have to consider when you build relationships, when you build friendships. You're not excused of your bad behavior. You have to take accountability, even if it's not your fault, even if you were having a meltdown and you didn't mean what you said, or you feel embarrassed about the way that you behaved, you still did it. And so have enough kindness and empathy for yourself to forgive yourself for that, but also respect the people who were witness to it, the people who love you and just want to help you through it. Apologize when you've done something wrong and take accountability. And that's an important piece of the puzzle.
Right. Accountability is huge.
Yeah,
For
I
sure.
think that's a very important distinction because, past Jace would have said that if you go see a shrink, then you're weak. And a lot of people, I think, still believe that. They're like, they're just using this as an excuse to not act right. And I think that, that kind of is valid. You shouldn't use it as an excuse, but you can use that knowledge to be able to be a better part of society and not use it as a crutch. A crutch, use it as a strength, use it as a stepping stone and a stool instead. And
Absolutely.
I think that there's never going to be a place where it's black and white. There's always going to be a gray area or a spectrum or a wheel or whatever we're going to use it at. But the first, just be nice to people. I mean, straight up. Like, when you came on, you started talking about your streaming and how you just wanted to make a place where people could just hang out in a coffee shop style. That's the first step. And the unfortunate truth is there's just too much of the negative side of people that is magnified online.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think everyone's as negative as everyone thinks everyone is. And this is coming from someone that more than most, I've over the last since, was it 2021 I started this podcast? I've traveled across the whole US, a bunch of Europe, and I've met people in person and had in-person conversations, people I disagree with. But it's not vitriol and hate that you would expect based off us reading things online and seeing all these TikTok videos. Because the unfortunate truth, as you pointed out, we always are drawn towards the car crashes, the negative stuff. And so that's the message that I love to give out as much as possible is no, this world is not going down a shithole like a lot of people believe it is right now.
No,
it's going pretty freaking good compared to the last 10,000 years.
Right.
That black and white thinking is something that a lot of people with autism struggle with. Those gray areas are uncomfortable. We like to deal in absolutes. And so that is an exceptional reminder, absolutely, that there is discomfort in those gray areas, but there's growth in those gray areas. Understanding both sides and trying to find a way to meet in the middle, getting all the information that you can before you make up your mind and how you move forward. That is a huge feat. Something very difficult for you to do if you're an autistic person, but something that you should consider working on if it's something that you struggle with, because I know in myself that black and white thinking specifically likes to show up in relationships. It's very, you either are or you aren't, right? And that's not always the case. And it's something that is good to drive home, to remind yourself that those gray areas are uncomfortable, but growth is never comfortable. It's never
Right.
easy. It's never comfy. It doesn't ever feel good.
Yeah, you don't. And that's the biggest thing that I think. You don't grow because you want to. Like you do it because you have a lack of choice. Like something's got to change. Like you get to a boiling point, or something has to change. Or I don't like my weight, so I'm going to do and take steps to fix that and work out. And a lot of the time, like when that happens and people engage with that, like that's how that's literal growth. Yeah, but it's the easiest like thing that I can pull to.
I think that for maybe neurotypical people, growth is a choice, but for people with autism, and because of that black and white thinking, it's usually a rock bottom moment is what he means. Like you kind of you get yourself backed into a corner where you have no choice but to move forward. And I think that kind of instability shows up a lot in people who are undiagnosed or late diagnosed because they've spent their whole life building those habits.
Right.
They didn't learn how to accommodate that from a young age. So now they're very set in their ways. They're very set in their thinking and who they are. And so it's going to take a lot to get them to change that. And usually for us, that looks like rock bottom in whatever, area of your life that we're talking. But
well, because it worked for however long.
Right,
why can't I keep doing it?
I survived this long doing it this way. So why can't I keep doing that? Because it's not sustainable.
Shannon, Leif, both beautiful people.
Candace.
Gosh.
Adrian, cut that.
Yeah, cut that. No, I am Candace.
Restart.
So it turns out I very much appreciated y'all coming on.
Yeah, absolutely.
These are conversations that we're having more and more often. It's something that we're lucky to live in the age that we have because even 5, 10, imagine 100 years ago, half of these words didn't even exist. It was just hey, you are possessed by a demon and now we need to bring you at the stake. Yeah. So now that we can actually—
you're an oracle.
Yeah. Ooh, I want that job. I'm definitely not an oracle. I can remember names, but the witch thing, I could go on that forever. The whole Salem. But we're not going to get into it.
That's fair.
Can't do that rabbit hole right now. That is a special interest.
We don't have 4 more hours, but thank you so much for coming on, guys. I had a great conversation. I learned a lot about myself. I may have to go talk to Jesus now.
Fair enough.
The gold chain Jesus, not the beard
not
one.
The one upstairs.
Yeah, well, maybe I need a little bit of both in my life.
Fair enough.
But I really do appreciate you sharing the parts of yourselves. One of the overarching themes that I've had throughout this podcast is that we tend to not share the dark parts of ourselves. We climb and succeed. And then once we succeed, we say, hey, look what I've done.
Right.
Instead of showing, hey, this was the terrible parts that got me to where I am.
Right.
And so I think when you are strong, when you get to the point where you have yourself grounded, sharing those dark moments is so important to that next person coming up. So thank you for sharing your darkness with me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for the opportunity to do that.
And then Leif Eats Lemons.
Yes.
Did you have a handle you want to throw?
Candace Morgan.
Candace Morgan. Instagram, all platforms. All right. Well, check them out. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And bye, everybody.
Bye.
I am Woodstock.